Pope Francis has died. Just a day after giving his Easter blessing, the news has shocked the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. For believers, this is a moment of grief and prayer. For world leaders, it's a time to remember a man considered by many a moral compass incarnate. Francis became Pope in 2013 when Catholicism was reeling, sex abuse scandals, and a crisis of trust outside and from within. He didn't shy away from those challenges, and he pushed the envelope on issues such as homosexuality and women in the clergy. For some, he went too far. For others, not far enough. Tonight, the pontiff's passing, what it means for a church that may or may not be changing. We begin the day with the passing of a pontiff and the future of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis died on Monday, and with that, his 12-year papacy. In that time, Francis became known for his compassion, humility, and his sometimes controversial openness. From St. Peter's Square to the slums of Buenos Aires, a world of reactions to the death of Francis, from mourners remembering a pope of the people to conservatives who would like the church to return to its doctrinal roots. Now, Pope Francis sought to redefine the role of the papacy in the modern world, less of a chosen leader at the top to more of a man among the people. He initiated reforms to make the church more inclusive and transparent, and his tenure, it was marked by resistance from both conservative factions uneasy with his tone and from progressives frustrated by the slow pace on issues such as women in the clergy. Pope Francis leaves behind a complex legacy, one of bold gestures, unfinished reforms, and a church still grappling with its identity.
Pope Francis's last message was one of peace. Appearing on Easter Sunday, he addressed the suffering of many around the world and gave a short blessing.
Dear brothers and sisters, happy Easter.
Buona Pasqua.
His sermon, however, was read by Cardinal Angelo Comastri. Like many of Francis's messages over the years, it was a call to action and an appeal for hope and faith. The Pope had recently been released from hospital after battling pneumonia in both of his lungs for 5 weeks. It was his most serious illness through the 12 years as head of the Catholic Church. Afterwards, he was rarely seen in public. But he leaves behind a remarkable legacy. Pope Francis was like no pope before him. The first from Latin America, devoted to justice, and a controversial reformer. The white smoke that billowed out of the Vatican on March 13, 2013, signaled the election of Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who was introduced by his new name, Pope Francis.
Brothers and sisters, good evening.
Modesty would be a hallmark of his pontificate. Long before he became Francis, his message was, "I am one of you." Jorge Mario Bergoglio was the son of Italian immigrants in Argentina. He trained as a chemical engineer before studying theology. He then joined the Jesuit order and was ordained a priest in 1969. 30 years later, he was appointed Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He preferred taking the train to work rather than be driven around. He stayed true to form as Pope.
We are used to the big American limousines, and this is a Mr. Bean car by comparison.
The media latched onto his down-to-earth nature.
I've always carried my bag myself. It's normal.
The difference between Francis and his predecessor Benedict XVI, who resigned from office, could not have been greater. Francis was comfortable in the spotlight. Benedict was considered a shy theorist. Yet the two got along well. Francis saw himself as an advocate for those without a voice. He visited refugee camps during the migration crisis when xenophobia reached new heights in Europe. He welcomed migrants to the Vatican and prayed for the thousands who perished in the Mediterranean.
The sea, a cemetery.
Francis was a political pope who supported peace negotiations in Colombia and in the Central African Republic. He played a crucial role in forging the way to a diplomatic thaw in relations between Cuba and the US under the Obama administration. And he prayed for peace in the Middle East at Jerusalem's Western Wall and at the wall Israel built around the Palestinian territories. Pope Francis didn't shy away from taking on the most powerful politicians in the world, as then US President Donald Trump soon learned.
A person who repeatedly only thinks about building walls and not bridges is not a Christian.
But Francis's papacy was not without controversy. In his native Latin America, critics staged protests against him. As a young priest, he was accused of failing to speak out against Argentina's brutal military rule of the 1970s. He was also lambasted for mishandling sex abuse scandals that rocked the Catholic Church. Many conservatives were skeptical about the Pope's approach to renew the Church, cleaning up the influential Vatican Bank and appointing new cardinals, especially in developing countries. Traditionalists found this irritating. Then Francis met with a gay couple and conveyed an understanding for their way of life.
If someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge?
For many in the Vatican, such a comment from a pope was unthinkable. Francis felt the backlash.
Reforming Rome is like cleaning the Sphinx of Egypt with a toothbrush.
In early 2023, he became the first pope in modern times to preside over the funeral of another pontiff. Struggling to walk, Francis blessed the coffin of his predecessor, Pope Benedict. Tens of thousands packed into St. Peter's Square to attend the Mass and witness history. Pope Francis's own legacy will be marked less by his theological discourses than his enduring image as a man of the people. Because of his humble nature, he enjoyed a popularity like no other pontiff before him, not just among his church followers, but around the world.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by journalist Philip Willan, who is in Rome. Philip, the dichotomy here is undeniable. Easter Sunday, the Pope appears to offer his blessing, and then Easter Monday comes and news that the Pope is dead. What kind of reactions have you heard where you are?
Well, clearly there's a sense of shock here because the Pope was very visible in the service in St. Peter's Square on Sunday. He delivered his blessing. He couldn't speak at any length, but he then toured the square in his Pope-mobile, looking as though he was on the mend and ready to gradually resume his role as pontiff. So people were very shocked and surprised when suddenly they learned early this morning that he had died, because that seemed to go against what the signs were visible when he appeared in public. Clearly, though, he was an elderly man. He wasn't well. And you could also see in his face that there was pain and discomfort. Not surprising, but people have been surprised by it.
Francis passed away at an important time of the year for Christians, with many people coming to Rome to mark Easter, which marks the resurrection of Jesus. Has that given more significance to his death?
I think it has. In a sense, there couldn't really be a better day for a pope to die on, because he has just participated in the celebration of Christian belief in the resurrection. So the faithful who are deeply convinced of this can be confident that he is now with God in heaven, enjoying his just reward. So I think that people can take comfort from this, people of faith at least. And at the same time, if he had died earlier in the run-up to Easter, the death of a pope before what should be a joyous occasion would have been inconvenient, to say the least.
Journalist Philip Willan helping us put the passing of this pope into context. Philip, we appreciate your reporting and your analysis. Thank you. Pope Francis was the first pontiff from Latin America. In his native Argentina, he was both revered, but he was also controversial. Throughout the 12 years of his papacy, he never visited his homeland, not even once. We want to cross over now to Buenos Aires. Felicitas Pinerio. She is a journalist in Argentina. It's good to see you. I just want to ask you, how would you describe the reaction to Pope Francis's death there in Argentina where you are?
Well, hello, how are you? Good evening to everybody. Here in Argentina, we are such a special people that when he was a pope there in the church, we were quite angry with him because he never came to Argentina. But now that he's dead, we are like, oh, the pope. He was Argentinian. We are very, very sad. And the government has decreed 7 days of mourning. And we are really now missing him, you know. We were very angry with him when he was alive, but now we already miss him. And everybody is talking about all the things he did. What a different pope he was. He was the pope of the poor. So, here in Argentina, we are really, really sad about his disease, for
Felicitas,
sure.
Let me ask you, you mentioned that the Pope did not return to Argentina. I mean, he never visited Argentina as Pope Francis, even though he visited neighboring countries. I think it was Brazil, Chile, and Paraguay. What was the explanation among the people in Argentina for his absence?
Well, the explanation that we sometimes wanted to believe is that he didn't want it to be like the element of division here, because he was a very politic person, and his ideas was with the Peronistas. It's like the left side of the politics here in Argentina. The party is a left party, and he was part of that one. And when we have the right government, he didn't want to come, and he was all the time supporting the left side that here nowadays in Argentina is like very, very, very corrupt.
Yeah.
So that's why he didn't want to come, because it was quite, for him, political unfair to go when there is a government that wasn't from the left, you know, when he was receiving the ex-vice president and President Cristina, that she was a very, very corrupt person, and now he's about to go to jail, and he was receiving her in the Vatican. So here in Argentina, we are like very disappointed, and he never wanted to come because of that. He didn't want to be like an element for the politicians, you know, to say, okay, he's here because he is supporting me or that stuff. So that's why we think he never came.
Felicitas, let me ask you before we run out of time, what will the legacy be of Pope Francis in Argentina? How will people remember him in the future?
First of all, we will we will be very proud of having a pope for once. And we really like the Jesuit popes, Jesuit priests. So, and we will remember him as a very rebel person of the church, someone that is bringing new airs to the church, to the Christianism. So I think that now that he is dead, we will start to see all the things he did that we couldn't when he was alive, because we were so angry with him because he wasn't coming. You know, Argentinian, we think that an Argentinian is from our property. So we were like quite disappointed. But I think he will be remembered as a very different and rebel pope, and someone that has done very good things for the poor people.
Journalist Felicitas Pinerio reporting from Buenos Aires tonight. Felicitas, we certainly appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
The Catholic Church's sex abuse crisis remains one of the most devastating chapters in its history. It was one of the biggest tests of Pope Francis's leadership. When Francis took office, the church was in deep crisis. Thousands of victims had come forward, and the pattern was clear: abuse by priests and cover-ups at the highest levels. Francis promised zero tolerance. He met with survivors, created a special commission in the Vatican, and introduced new rules to hold bishops accountable. But critics say it wasn't enough, that enforcement was weak and transparency came slowly. And for many survivors, justice never arrived. So, did Pope Francis go far enough to heal one of the church's deepest wounds, or did he simply soften the tone without changing the system? James Faluszczak is a former Catholic priest and a survivor of clergy sexual abuse who has become a prominent whistleblower and advocate for victims. He joins us tonight from Buffalo in New York State. It's good to see you again. You have seen the church from the inside and from the outside as a priest, a survivor, and now as an advocate. When you heard that Pope Francis had died, what was your first reaction?
I think alongside everyone else, a sense of sadness and a feeling that he missed a major opportunity, not just with myself, but with most all of the survivors that I speak with, that he was not transparent, that he didn't have the same concern for us as he did for some other poor people or poor in spirit. Those fleeing danger in countries and all kinds of other people that he had solicitude and care for. He didn't seem to have that for us consistently, and for most of us, really not much at all.
If he had had more time on this planet, what would you have liked for him to do? What would have been the remedy?
To openly and transparently prosecute according to his own laws that supposedly are founded on the gospel, bishops who cover up these crimes. He is one of them, as the Bishop of Rome, who seemed to let his friends, bishops and priests, have escaped justice from even the church, let alone their own native countries. And even if he had more time, I don't know if it was age, probably not, more a result of his human and ecclesiastical formation, that his views around these issues were calcified by the time he became Bishop of Rome and up until a beautiful, otherwise beautiful Easter Sunday.
James, you wrote something today. We want to pull it up for our viewers too. And I'm going to read a segment from it. You write, people have been edified by Pope Francis's words of support for poor people and migrants fleeing persecution, and his drawing of the world's attention to the forgotten should not be a novelty for future popes. I mean, Francis, he came into office promising a new era of accountability. From your perspective, did he deliver on any of that?
To me, no, he did not. as for some of the initiatives that you described just a moment ago, the commission, the Survivors Commission that he enacted, both with ecclesiastics and survivors, that commission had various iterations as members came and went. Some resigned because nothing had happened. Leaders of that commission resigned and moved on to other opportunities to advocate. In terms of his landmark declaration, Vos Estis Lux Mundi, which was to hold bishops accountable. When it was enacted or applied, we never heard anything about it and saw very rarely any results from it. And it was bishops investigating themselves. In many cases, their friends, their subordinates, people that they knew from the bishops' conferences of their countries. So the initiatives that he did enact may have had teeth if his heart was really in it, and it just did not seem to be.
So, James, did anything at all change under Francis for survivors such as yourself who are seeking justice? Did anything change?
There were flourishes, there were gestures here and there, but the fundamental stance of the papacy has not changed. There was much made in the media among even very good reporters about this pontifical secret being dismissed, that he was going to do away with it in these cases. And he made some tweaks and changes to canon law, but in reality, the pontifical secret never went away. The procedures of tribunals and the secrecy that needs to go on as part of those deliberations never really went away. And as the chief executive, as the lawgiver of the church, he was free at any point to do whatever he wanted, and he dispensed with his own laws at will, and there's evidence of that.
I wanted to maybe ask if you think Pope Francis understood the depth of institutional complicity in all of this abuse, or did he just not check that? I mean, did he miss it?
After the Papal Summit in 2019 at the Vatican, Vos Estis was promulgated, and we received a report into the crimes and the horrible trauma that Cardinal Theodore McCarrick inflicted upon many children and seminarians who became, in some cases, his subordinates became priests and bishops. We know that. Even but the problem there was that it was such a big scope, hundreds of pages, that he didn't then take the time to do that kind of investigation of others. And even the report on Theodore McCarrick had insights and threads that were never pulled by church officials, at least publicly, or even by the media. We just wouldn't know where to start. And that kind of investigation needs to take place for hundreds of bishops, if not more.
Well, James, I've got about a minute left. I want to ask you, what would you want the next pope to know about the crisis, the survivors, and the future of the church?
Whoever that man is, he needs to enter into the humanity and into the tragedy that we survivors, we victims, live every day. And Pope Francis has empathy, or had empathy, for so many poor and so many forgotten, but we are still forgotten. And I don't think that he ever really was able to enter into the depths of our sorrow or walk alongside us, I think, as Christ really would have. Pope Francis should have and did not effectively.
James Faluszczak, we appreciate your time. We certainly do recognize the courage and bravery that you are showing by being so open with your own story, and we thank you.
Thank you, Brent.